All in Sports Network. We love sports.
Today is Thursday, July 31st, final day of the July month, and we will head into August. And then August means preseason football, maybe some high school football, early high school football towards the end of the month. And then by the time we get into September, it will be full-out college football season. The start of the NFL season gets going around that first week and a half of the month of September. So, Jake, we are... Oh my God, we're almost there, dude. I can almost taste football season.
Now is when it gets really slow, though. Now is when it takes a really long time because we're gonna get fall camp reports, and that's really fun for about the first week of pads.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're just like, okay, now I just read every day, praying to God you don't see an injury, and I just want to see them play football against another team.
And I don't need 4 running backs going down before week 1. Can't have it. Don't want it. Don't need it.
No, we went into last year being like Texas loaded at running back, and then you lose 2 running backs before you even reach week 1, and you're like, uh-oh. And then people forget that Wisner and Blue were very banged up at the start of the year. They were down to, Gibson, and basically just kind of having to completely change their offense for a few games.
Yeah, had to get the Melton Ferner. And didn't have to really use him in the season, thank God. But, had to get him from the transfer portal just to have bodies at the running back position in case somebody did go down in a game. So, no, Jake, I'm with you. This is the point of the year where I'm more nervous than anything at this point of the season.
Yeah.
I'm paranoid. Every time I refresh my news feed and I see something pop up about Texas or Dallas, I immediately just think, don't read an injury report. Don't read an injury report. Like, that's literally all I'm at right now.
We had the Tyler Guyton scare for Dallas the other day. I saw a notification come up my phone, and the only 2 words I saw were Tyler Guyton, and I went, well, he's done for the season before I even read it. And then I read that it was,
the rumored
torn ACL, and I was like, it's not rumored, it's torn. Was ecstatic when I learned it was only 4 to 6 weeks, which is still not good news, by the way. But I'm so scorned from constantly having my teams have season-ending, career-altering injuries before week 1 that you just start to assume the worst.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. And so right now we're in fingers crossed, eyes crossed, legs crossed, toes crossed, tongue crossed, every body ligament that you've got crossed for good luck that your team can at least start week 1. Is this going to sound bad that I want to see the injury? I would much rather see it on a football field being played in a real game, not a preseason game, but like a practice injury feels like it hurts a little bit more, especially a preseason practice injury hurts a little bit more than like a week 4 ACL first quarter run up the gut, type season ending injury. You don't want to see it regardless, but I would rather it be in competition in a real game.
May I remind you how sick we were after the Quinn Ewers injury in the UTSA game. Now we know he was hurt before that.
Yeah.
And kind of really cost his throwing ability the whole season, was a big detriment to why we never saw. We always wondered where Michigan Quinn was. Turns out that was Quinn,
the last Quinn that we would see.
Just not a Quinn with a torn oblique or pectoral or whatever it was. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's that you want to see it. I don't think that's
not
the way you mean it when you say it. And I know you don't want to see an injury to our teams, to the other teams, to whoever. It's at least you got to see them play football. And
when you just means something a little bit more whenever it's on like in competition in a real game.
Just not getting to see a single snap from CJ Baxter last year is sickening.
Yeah, it sucks.
Especially with how great he was looking in camp from all the reports and we don't get to watch camp, but typically Texas sources are fairly reliable, and all news was he was going to be the breakout back. And then he, tears ACL. There was like Christian Clark is an up and coming freshman. He may get snaps this year. He's going to be hard to keep off the field. Then he's out.
Yeah.
And then you're like, uh-oh, we still got good running backs left, but we don't have many left.
Yeah.
And Texas thin is some spot. If there's one if there's one negative to the roster this year, they are thin in certain positions. And so you really have to hope that you avoid injuries in those positions. Offensive line be one.
Yeah, wide receiver might be a concern if you get some of your top guys, your more experienced guys, missing a couple weeks of action, even if it is through the regular season. So, Jake, speaking of running backs, let's go ahead and last week we did over-unders on wide receiver numbers and where we thought this wide receiver group might finish their seasons off. Let's go ahead and do that for the running back position, and then we'll probably do it for Arch as well, and then we might throw in some defensive groups while we're at it, while we have a little bit of time as week one against Ohio State approaches very slowly, but surely nonetheless. So this one probably won't take as long as wide receivers and our pass catchers because we had included tight ends, and also there's the wide receiver group is way more than just 4 or 5 running backs. And so I've got Ricky Stewart and James Simon on here, Jake. I'm going to actually just skip down to them real quick. Do you think they get playing time? Do you think they get some carries, yards, touchdowns? What do you think any of the 2 freshman running backs coming in, or what's the redshirt situation look like for them?
You know, I've read a little bit about both of them. It seems like maybe Ricky Stewart might have a chance, but I think it's just I think they'll both get some carries in some of those early season games. Not Ohio State, but the Sam Houston, UTEP, San Jose State, those games. We'll see them get carries, and if one of them has a breakout, you can't keep them off the field. But ideally, I think they would both be redshirted or not play much, because I ideally you have 4 running backs that could start at a lot of different power conference schools. And that's before you get to those 2 freshmen. So probably a little bit deeper of a room this year, some uncertainty, albeit with CJ Baxter, Christian Clark coming off those injuries we've talked about. But I think ideally neither of these freshmen are going to be getting even as many carries as a Jarrett Gibson last year.
All right. Yeah, I would repeat those sentiments, Jake. I would also agree with probably your take on those 2 players. And in fact, I would imagine both of them get rewarded with a red shirt by season's end, and they come in as redshirt freshmen next season. And then depending on where we are with redshirt sophomore CJ Baxter and junior Trey Wisner, if those 2 decide to return, don't return, and then you're just looking at a plethora of wealth, along with a Derek Cooper coming in, 5-star running back that was signed last week, or verbally committed, not signed. I don't want to confuse the people out there. So anyway, let's go ahead. Over under, Jake, on the predictions. We'll start off with the proverbial starter, however you want to mention it. Trey Wisner coming in as the only returning 1,000-yard runner in the SEC. He had last season, I'm going to give you the stats of last year, and then I'll give you the over-under for the predicted carries, yards, and touchdowns that we came up with ourselves. Because we are not sponsored by any sports book. And if a sports book wants to sponsor us, we will gladly promote your numbers that people can go place bets at. So he had 226 carries, 1,064 yards, and 5 touchdowns on the season a season ago for Trey Wisner. His numbers that we've put up: 230 carries, 1,110 yards, and 7.5 touchdowns.
This is going to be a lot tougher than the wide receivers, I think, because I think this room is a lot more unsettled than the wide receivers. And I'm going to assume this is regular season numbers, not in counting postseason. I'm going to say the under if I was making the bet, simply because I think there is a decent probability that a CJ Baxter, that a Christian Clark, that a Jarrett Gibson take a lot of carries away. So I like the under. I will say I like the over on touchdowns, at the very least, to get over his touchdown total from last year.
Yeah.
Of 5 for sure. I think Texas will be better running the ball in the red zone.
I think Wisner's going to have more than 5 touchdown rushes before conference play starts.
I would probably bet with that as well, because I do think Wisner will be getting most of the carries, especially early on. Because they're going to be nursing. I know CJ Baxter's come back kind of full force. They're not going to be in a hurry to get him on the field taking, workhorse number carries.
Yeah.
And same goes for Christian Clark. And then Jarrett Gibson, we kind of have to see where he's at with his vision. I know they're going to be doing more of a power gap scheme this year, which is probably a little bit better for that downhill running style. Don't have to be quite as patient as you did previously. They're changing their scheme up some, but I say under, and it's not because I don't think Wisner can't have that year. It's just more betting the probability that there's a good chance that someone else is going to be taking away a lot of carries, and he's not going to be the workhorse back he had to be a lot of last year.
I'm also looking to see what Chad Scott, the new running backs coach, is going to be able to do with these runners, and kind of what his influence, kind of taking away from, or not taking away, but maybe adding on to what Tashard Choice was doing with guys like Trey Wisner and really this entire group aside from the freshmen that are coming in. So eager to see, and the fact that there was a coaching change and all these guys decided to stay and not transfer out after Coach Choice left. Is a true testament of where this program is as a whole, and where Steve Sarkisian kind of has his thumbprint. So, yeah, Jake, I think the carries might be under 230. I think the yards might be flirting with that 11-10. I think it actually might be flirting closer to maybe what he did last year. I don't know. I think maybe 1,100 yards is pretty fair. So maybe slightly under. And then I do think he goes over on the touchdowns for Trey Wisner.
Yeah, I
do think
like
he's a
that.
1,000-yard rusher.
I think more than likely he's a 1,000-yard rusher. My only hesitations are just, what if a Christian Clark just becomes like, oh, he's just a level above? But at the same time, all reports are that Wisner he's done nothing but improve.
Yeah.
And somehow is going under the radar just because there's shiny, 5-star toys out there in that backfield. But Wisner's going to be tough to take off the seat. I just bet under mainly because, like I said, just betting the probabilities of someone else taking carries.
I just think that they're going to spread the wealth. I think Steve Sarkisian, he's been very transparent in how he's going to utilize some of his players this year in terms of resting guys and making sure that they're not overloaded throughout the regular season in preparation for postseason, because that's where Texas plans on being. And I think everybody else in the country expects Texas to be one of the top 12 teams at the end of the season. And so if you've got playoffs, you can't just be running your top running backs into the ground each and every single week leading up to the playoffs. And so there are going to be weeks where we may not even see Trey Wisner get a carry in the second half.
Yeah, especially in some of those early season games outside of Ohio State. The question is, when you get into the meat of some of the schedule and you're in the swamp and you're down 7 in the third quarter, what's that I'll be curious to see when they're in a close game, especially in conference play. I think Ohio State, first game of the season, you're going to be forced to rotate. But when you're in the swamp, it's third quarter, the crowd's going crazy, you're down 7 points. If they're in a situation like that, what's it going to look like? Is Wisner getting, those A&M type numbers with the carries, or is Christian Clark the guy? Is Gibson the guy? Is Baxter fully back in the guy at that point? Does someone else take the RB1 spot? Not because of anything Wisner could do wrong, but just because Texas truly has a plethora of talent at this position. But we'll have to see who proves themselves, because the only proven quantity right now, especially that's not coming off an injury, is Wisner.
And it's also going to be, in my opinion, the way Steve Sarkisian speaks about it, I get the fact that it might just be whoever's the hottest hand, who's running the best, who looks the best, who's seeing the field the best out of the backfield, and it might be that guy who's getting the majority of the carries for that game.
I mean, you could end up having 4 guys at 500 plus yards.
Yeah.
And it'd just be a really weird year. And also, how do you think Texas is getting all these really highly recruited running backs? They're not telling them you're going to sit on the bench for 3 years. They're telling them, if you show you have the ability to play, we are going to rotate this position and you will play. And guess what? We've shown that these rotational guys, you're going to get drafted.
And here's the thing. You don't want a ton of miles in college going into the NFL. You want some fresh legs and some miles left in the tank for when you do get drafted into the NFL.
I think scouts are more and more just starting to look at your usage rates being really high in college as a bad thing. because we know how the running back position is turned into in the NFL, and it's all about youth unless you are that rare freak like a Saquon Barkley.
And it's more about what you do with the few carries that you do get, not so much the amount of carries that you get and capitalize on, unless you can prove yourself to be an every down guy like a Bijan Robinson, who still had Jonathan Brooks and Roschon Johnson in the backfield with him.
I was about to say Roschon Johnson got a lot of carries. Bijan wasn't used as a pure workhorse under Steve Sarkisian. He did rotate out. Did he get a lot of the carries, especially in closer games? Yes, but Roschon was still in plenty of big possessions. So even when they have a guy like a Bijan, Steve Sarkisian has showed that if you prove yourself, you will get carries.
All right, Jake, let's move on to CJ Baxter coming off of that ACL injury, redshirt sophomore season, 150 carry, or excuse me, last season went and had in
2 seasons ago
in 2023, 138 carries, 659 yards, and 5 touchdowns in his freshman season. Obviously didn't play last year, but that was in his 2023 season. Estimated around 150 carries, so about 20 or 12 more carries than he had his freshman year. 700 yards, about 50 yards more than he had his freshman year, and about a half a touchdown more at 5.5 touchdowns in his return coming off of an ACL.
Yeah, I think I like the over here. I just have a gut feeling that Baxter's going to have one of those special seasons coming back from an injury where he has done nothing but work his butt off to get back into position to get on the field again. His Players Tribune, post that we talked about, you feel like he's a team leader. And I just feel like that's going to result of when Texas gets in the shit. Like I just said, you're in the swamp. I could see Baxter being a guy who comes in to start getting a lot of that really tough yardage for you.
You know what game just pops out in his career to me was that that Iowa State game at Ames. It just was kind of that first game where he felt like he belonged as RB1 following the Jonathan Brooks injury. And I don't think his stats were overly impressive in that game. I think it was the timeliness of his runs and the clutchness of third down conversions and just big time gains and catches and yards gained. It put him in a favorable field position in that game in 2023 against Iowa State, where it was the first time where I saw him play and I was like, oh, we got something special here. This is the 5-star that was recruited.
20 carries, 117 yards in that game.
Yeah.
You had, Jaden Blue with just 7 carries, 19 yards in that game. So yeah, Baxter kind of cemented himself in that game. And that's a good pull by you, just remembering that he kind of had that, that because Quinn had a big game in that game as well. He was 23 of 33, 281 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. But Baxter,
what was the final of that game?
26-16.
Okay. But it was closer towards the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And that was a game too, where, that was a big culture win for Texas. Just because that was a game they'd lost in previous years where things got close. The environment was crazy.
Iowa State offensive line was talking mad shit to Devondre Sweat and Byron
the 5-star culture thing.
Yeah.
That was a game that Texas had lost in previous years. And that was one of those big Sarkisian wins. And that was on the back of CJ Baxter.
Yep.
So that's why I like the over. Even though 700 yards, that's a lot of yards, especially when you have a Wisner who's going to get a lot of carries regardless. I just feel like when you get into the middle of the season and things get tough, CJ Baxter may be the one who emerges because he already has a big leadership role on this team.
No, Jake, I think this coaching staff trusts him, and I think the players are really going to be behind him. I think the offensive line is going to see number 4 in the huddle, and they're going to say, let's block a little harder. Let's get this guy back on track. Not to say they're not going to block hard for Wisner or any of the other guys, but I just think that it means something to see number 4 back in there with that leadership that you were talking about of like, let's get him in the end zone. Come on, let's
go read his Players Tribune or go back to our episode where we discussed it. And that'll tell you why we're saying these things about Baxter. The only thing that could limit him this year is if he isn't physically right.
Yeah.
And from all reports we've read, it seems like he is way ahead of schedule at this point right now.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what he can do. But yeah, again, just to recap, 150 carries, 700 yards, 5.5 touchdowns. I actually think he goes over 150 carries. I could see him flirting with that 700 mark, maybe even around 800 or even flirting with 900. He had a couple of big breakout games where he is RB1, and I think he gets over 5.5 touchdowns. I think he's probably sitting at 6 or 7.
If Texas has a deep playoff run, I could see him getting over 1,000 yards easily.
Yeah. If Texas is pushing for a national championship, he's going to flirt with 1,000 yards for sure. All right. Jared Gibson, who I have as running back 3 on this list, true sophomore. Last season, he had 78 carries, 377 yards, 4 touchdowns, Jake. And so going into his sophomore season, I've got him listed as 100 carries, 500 yards, 3.5 touchdowns.
I'm going to take the under here. And the reason being is I think Christian Clark might emerge himself over Jared Gibson. I think they wanted Gibson to kind of almost take over RB1, become just the dude. I mean, the guy in camp, because before going in to spring, there was a lot of talk about the staff thinks Gibson could maybe even be better than Wisner. And then when the pads got on and the practices started, it was all Wisner talk. And the fact that it kind of went quiet about Gibson tells me a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I've read a lot of glowing things about Christian Clark now. It doesn't mean anything until the pads get on and they're practicing come fall. But Christian Clark was a guy I was really excited about last year. It seemed like he was going to play himself in a role where you could not keep him off the field. I think he does that this year. He came back a little bit before Baxter as well, so he's probably a little ahead in that front. And I could see him kind of taking over, and I could see Gibson maybe being kind of a red zone specialist almost.
Yeah.
You could run some wildcat with him possibly, kind of like they did with Savion Red. And he could take that role. I could be wrong. Again, any of these guys have the ability to essentially become RB1. Wisner is RB1 until proven otherwise. Any of these guys have the ability to. I'm just kind of trying to read the tea leaves of what I've read from spring, what I've read from the summer workouts, and try to put that together to formulate my predictions.
And what I've noticed in Sark's offense is that they kind of figure themselves out. And Sark is not afraid to pull guys. I mean, we saw the impact at the wide receiver position where it started weeks 1 through 5 and where the season ended through the playoffs and who was getting all the snaps. We saw DeAndre Moore getting way more snaps than Isaiah Bond. We saw Ryan Wingo out there way more than we saw Isaiah Bond and some of these other guys. And so, and Matthew Golden emerges as wide receiver 1. And we saw Silas Bolden play different roles of whether or not, his playing time should have been more at the beginning of the season than it was towards the middle of the season or the end of the season. And so his PT fluctuated between favorable matchups, just kind of how he was playing that day, how his weekend practice was. And so we're going to see, I think, 1 week Jared Gibson might get 10, 15 carries. He might get or that many touches in a game. And then the next week we might see 2 or 3, maybe not even on the field, and he might be put down to RB4 just for a specific matchup or a specific game or against a specific defense. I think Sark is too smart to say this is my depth chart and this is what I'm sticking with no matter what.
Well, and something that could differentiate these guys, and I know you're going to find this shocking, I'm going to say this, but is pass blocking.
Yeah.
Being able to be out there on a down and the other team not just go, well, he's either going on a route or it's a run.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to pass block because teams look at those keys.
Yep.
And that's in the scouting report. And there is a big difference between, heck, that probably made Ezekiel Elliott's career in the NFL about 3 or 4 years longer than it would have. It became a meme of like, he's basically another offensive lineman out there.
Fullback.
But
yeah.
he was a great pass blocker. He had lost his juice in the run game at that point, but it is a really important aspect of the game.
Yeah.
And as when I played offensive line, I loved having a running back back there I could trust because believe me, we had plenty we couldn't.
And let's be honest, it depends on a lot of how this new offensive line is going to block in the run game. Just overall.
is and then also it matters for the pass blocking too, because you shade your running back to the side that needs more help. That's a very commonplace thing to do. If Neto is struggling in pass blocking early on against an Ohio State, you shade that running back to the left side and help him out. It allows you to just be more flexible if you have a guy out there you can trust in the pass blocking as well. And that's something Gibson really could not do last year. Despite how physical he is, there's a lot of mental work that goes with pass blocking when you're a running back.
Yeah, I think his numbers, Jake, I think the touchdowns will be over. I could see it being under on both carries and yards. He could very well be the odd man out. But if he has that baby rhino, nickname carry on through into this season, and they like him in short yardage situations, he might find a very valuable role.
Red zone as well. Red zone and short yardage, I think, could be his bread and butter next year.
All right. Christian Clark, Jake, redshirt freshman, obviously had the injury last year. We didn't get to see any carries from him. Didn't even really get to see him dressed out. I've got him down for 55 carries, 225 yards, 2.5 touchdowns. Again, that's just an unknown of what numbers are we throwing up here?
And this is where I like going way over. I like him more towards where you had Jared Gibson's line. I just think he's going to carve himself a role. And when he touches the field, I think he'll have a play or two where you go, oh, this guy needs to be on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to be on the field in games that matter and in important moments.
You know who was a lot like that? RB1, Trey Wisner. Every time he stepped on the field, it was like, how are we keeping this guy off the field? And Trey Wisner never gave this coaching staff an opportunity or really a reason to keep him on the bench. They said, he's got to be on the field.
Especially when you had Jaden Blue, who showed when he could hold on to the football, he looks like the real deal, but you couldn't trust him to hold on to the football. And you could trust Wisner to get tough yardage, to be a good pass blocker, and to be an every down guy and not fumble the football. That is what edged him out over Jaden Blue.
Yeah,
because Jaden Blue was explosive. He was a fan favorite until he fumbled.
Yeah,
and that happened a lot.
And then you got also special teams. Is Jarrett Gibson or Christian Clark going to be able to provide anything on your special teams unit, much like a Trey Wisner did?
Yeah, and Texas needs it because, as we talked about in a previous episode this week, the special teams needs to be better, and that's not just punting and kicking. That's also punt coverage and kick coverage, because those weren't up to snuff for Steve Sarkisian team last year either. And that's roles where a Gibson, a Clark, these guys with speed. Clark probably not because he's coming off an injury, but maybe a Gibson can provide some snaps for you.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. My over under on Clark is I have no idea. I would stay away from that bet because you don't know, coming off of an injury, coming off of a freshman year where he didn't play, what is there to go based off of other than practice reports? And so it's really tough.
Even with Baxter, it's a coin flip because you just don't know. We haven't seen him on the field since he tore his ACL.
Yep. And I would feel a little bit more confident in Baxter, but you're right. We don't know where these guys are.
The only reason you'd feel more confident in Baxter is because we're emotionally attached to him at this point after, the leader he became while being off the field last year.
Yeah.
But also because we've seen him play, but it doesn't really mean much whenever you have such a catastrophic injury. I know they've gotten a lot better at the surgeries. It's still a lot to come back from. And sometimes it takes a whole nother year for you to really get back to what you were before the injury. We'll see if that's the case for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Feeling comfortable, cutting, all the things. And so, all right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, we release these episodes Monday through Friday, each and every day at noon. That is Jake Jimerson. I am Tanner Carlson. And again, this is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns right here on All in Horns. As always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.